So, just focusing on the battery, it's all.
So here is John.
Okay, first of all, thanks for everybody. Josh, who has worked continuously with his group there. Chuck, all the people from Energetics. Women who have been wonderful through this whole process. Tony, who is part of the filming. And my wife back there who's put up with all this crap here. So what I would like to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about John. You've noticed this forever on the internet site. That's the way I see the magnetic field. Now, I would like to pass around a card, which Jackie Lindemann has, and have everybody sign it for Tom Beard. Can I do that? Come on, Jackie. Okay, the year is 1957. John doesn't know anything. And I'm playing in the front yard with my friend. My dad works for Rocketdyne. He's a tube guy, so he only knows tubes. He has two of these in his pocket. That's exactly what it looked like. Says, here, boys, what can you do with this? Well, we're 7 years old. What do we know? We know nothing about this. But 3 days later, he was listening to the radio because the power, the device itself, we figured out how to stick two pieces of metal in the ground and power that device, which was a germanium device. So my dad was like a lot of others that worked with him. When this little device came along, you found those engineers pumping gas because you couldn't convince any of them that you needed a heater, whatever a heater is, right? Something you find in a vacuum tube. So ever since that point in time, John has been experimenting with electronics and mechanics and learned a lot of natural laws. Of course, didn't know much until later on in my life. English wasn't one of those. And I just sort of look back now and say, maybe it was better that you didn't just jump right off and get that brainwashed early. Because I look at magnetic fields and I look at these devices all doing a different thing. It's sort of a built-in tuition with me. I get the idea, I run the idea in my head, I make changes in my head, I try a different circuit in my head, but that doesn't mean that John always succeeds. Just like you won't always succeed. So, time goes on, and the next step John makes is working in Sylmar, California, on this device right here called a G-field generator. I knew nothing about it. I read the patent. By looking at the patent, I had an intuition that the coils were wired wrong. So I just wound them my way. Well, to my surprise, this thing took off. I loaded it down and it took off. That was a 12-volt motor, a DC motor at the back of the device. And in this picture here, I'm showing Ike Muller the Tesla switch. The G field is sitting over here, and there was a bigger one over here. And I was prepared. I was prepared to go to the Tesla conference. It was an exciting time. But before that, Tom Bearden was releasing a book called Towards a New Electromagnetics. Do any of you remember that book? You remember that book, Josh?
Still available.
In that book, there was a machine called the free energy motor. So I'm sure that Rhonda and Gary and anybody that worked with me at the time remember the phone calls to Tom Bearden. Probably $300 more than we had to call Tom Bearden every night. That's how many times I called Tom Bearden. And we'd talk and talk and talk, and I'd say, Tom, are you sure that this is what they're talking about here? Is there really this current? This is out of the book, Towards an Electromagnetics. And I kept saying to myself, Tom, are you sure that this is exactly the way the machine is operating, just like this? There's a controller, which is nothing more than a switch. And that controller controls these switches right here, which breaks the motor into pulses. I think Peter Linderman discussed that, right? About breaking the motor into pulses. And of course, now here's the real stumper. What is this? It's an energizer. What's an energizer? Is it a generator that draws current that's going to slow down when it hits the battery? No, that's not what it is, John. I said, well, then what is it? Well, I can't talk about it. It's proprietary to the inventors. They only allow me to put a block diagram in the book. So I said to myself, I'm gonna call it back and find out what this energizer is. Well, it seems to be that an energizer is something like a G-field or something like a bunch of coils with just north poles, nothing switches, back and forth. And so I kept saying to myself, because I'm conventionally trained, how am I going to charge the battery? There's no current. So for nights and nights and nights, I walked around. And then I noticed something funny. When I was charging the battery with the G field, and the G field got to the correct load, the battery would just boil away and the current would go to nothing. In fact, Peter Linderman came to see me in Sylmar, along with an electrical engineer, and I kept trying to point out to the electrical engineer, what's going on in this battery here? Just watch the battery. But of course that wasn't important. You see, even though the battery was charging and there was very little current going to the battery. Well, it is very important because you don't need that current to charge the battery. You just need the potential to move the ions in the battery. So I built this, called up John Ratzlaff at the Tesla Book Company. And he says, well, write a book. So the very first book that's in the book that I signed for you has that first generator in it. So, very secretly, from behind the scenes, Tom Bearden calls me one night and he says, John, the top scientists are talking about it. They've already made them. They work just fine. They can take them up to their cabins. And they don't need to have a solar panel. And believe me, in Idaho, the sun never shines. So, you want something other than a solar panel. Anyway, but this was circulating, and the next thing I knew is John was being invited to the Tesla symposium. But in the meantime, who should be calling me every day, every night? A man by the name of Jim Watson. And he kept asking me questions. John, how'd you get that motor to run? John, how'd you do this? John, how'd you do that? Well, I was right along with you people. I wanted to help the world, but it was 1984. You can't help them. So, without me knowing a thing, the 1984 conference comes up. And the first thing I did was I called and I said, I don't have the money to go there. And they said, no problem, John, we're going to send you a ticket to come here. So in the meantime, what I was working on was something called the Tesla switch through Ronald Brent. We can't leave Ronald Brent out of the equation because he was the first man to send me this ridiculous diagram, which most engineers would have looked at because it only had circles and little symbols in the circles, and it meant no electrical sense. I posted it on the group along with the letter on the energetics forum. When Peter and I were doing the research on Baldinelli. Because somewhere in the equation, Baldinelli fits into the picture too, with his self-charger. So let's move on and look at Jim Watson. By the way, there is, I think, a picture right here. Just so you know, that was the first G field. Those magnets right there are barium ferrite magnets, because that was the magnet at the time. Everybody had them. It wasn't until later years that they said, oh, we think the barium ferrite's dangerous for you. You can't hold it in your hand. Why did they take the barium ferrite away? I'll tell you why. It has a memory. It can remember what you can do to it, and if you condition it, it can oscillate. So you can get power from it, right? If you can swing the magnetic fields back and forth, you can put a wire in it, and there you have your energy. That's why they took them away. Yes, 1984. This shows up. But before this shows up, I goofed up. This is all that Jim Watson presented on the stage. That's all he did. He got up on the stage and he put this magnet up there. Like everybody knew what that meant. Nobody knew anything. I said, oh, great picture of a magnet. What am I sitting here for? Here I am, I built this box, and I'm gonna get up there and I'm gonna talk on this box. And I gotta look at this magnet. And wait. Hurry up and wait, just like in the military. So, thinking to myself, God, there must be a reason why he's got that magnet up there. But I didn't get the answer, and nobody got the answer from Jim Watson about the machine. He just got up on stage. See, he had been secretly building these machines. And he wasn't about to tell anybody about any of this. Somebody had given him, he was an auto mechanic. He had 2 little kids and a nice wife. And he wanted to do this. So he builds the machine. Doesn't tell anybody, doesn't tell Tom Bearden, doesn't tell John, doesn't tell anybody that he worked with. So the saying goes, loose lips sink ships. You'll notice these 2 machines. There's something different about these 2 machines. Notice this machine. And notice this machine. Now, can I ask a question to the audience? What do you see different between the 2 machines? Between this machine and this machine? What?
Coils are spinning.
What?
No flywheel?
No, the flywheel's on the top.
One's vertical, one's horizontal.
No.
Coils are spinning instead of the magnet?
Come on, let's really look, people. What's the difference?
It's not a full circle.
It is a full circle.
Number of magnets.
Small size and big.
See, the magnets are placed on this one symmetrically. Now you're going to get it. John's going to give it to you. Oops. If he stands up. Notice these magnets. What do you see here? They're not lined up, are they? Why do you suppose that is? No, not cogging. No. What does John talk about all the time on the internet? No. What does John always say? Whenever he writes, it's got to be a nonlinear field. got to be nonlinear. So of course this machine went to the show and worked. What do you see over here? Peter explained it this morning. Capacitor dump. What do you see here? A mass. Okay, so what Jim Watson did was he got up on stage, he pushed the button, and that jet aircraft motor wound that flywheel up. After that, the trickery begins. You know how I know the trickery begins? I invented it. See here? What he's doing is taking one magnetic field at a time, pulsing it, and using the others for energy. That way, the current always stays the same, no matter what the load is. See the magnets? Barium ferrite. They remember what you do to them. Are you ready for the mind blower? Barium ferrite on the other side of that wheel. Ooh, get the white robes out. Just missing the girl with the blonde hair. Anyway, that is what's rotating this machine in front of you with no current. Look at the shape of the magnets. They are pie-shaped. Why did John have them cut in a pie shape? So you would have one magnetic field on the top that was nonlinear from the magnetic field on the bottom. Ring the bell twice, and the energy appears, and the machine rotates. No trick. Been running all day like that. Go flip the switch. Look at the battery. Look at both batteries. Take one out, bring it to your table, short it out, see if it's got any power. So, we move on to this machine. But we must not leave out the guy at the Coral Castle. Oh no, my God. There's Ed's generator. But what is Ed's generator? Does anybody know? What did John and Peter show you in 2001? I was proud. I was holding the switch. And the lights were on. I'm going to tie it together for you. You shouldn't make any mistakes after this. If you do, call Santa. See this pole? And this pole, and this pole, and this pole, and this pole. Ed Leedscallion made superpoles. What did John say in 19... Well, not in the 1800s, but let's see. John said to Jerry Decker on KeelyNet, gee, Jerry, all you got to do is push the north poles together and you get a super beam. You get a real narrow beam and it's 4 times what the magnet is. And if you don't think so, measured out. Do your own measurements. That's what that is, right there. But it's at the Coral Castle. And it has no practical value because nobody knows what the machine is. And why don't they know what the machine is? You're not allowed to know. Because the government don't know. And if they do know, it's in Hangar 18. Go look. North, super south, super north, super south. It's tricky. Because see these four corners? What goes in there? Well, Ed thought a pyramid. What's the handle height? King's chamber. What goes in here? A star. Every Jewish person that's in the room should know what that star is. It's the Star of David. What did John do over here? He gives you 10 poles, and he puts them all in series, and he says, gee, Tom Byrne's got a nice website, and on that website, he's got a pair of the astronaut's boots. Get it? So what you're looking at on the side here, and Peter and I came to basically the same conclusion. It takes 42 foot-pounds of torque to go through the magnetic locks on the machine. And where's the power? Tom Byrne. 2 itty-bitty little spikes on a barium ferrite magnet to switch the fields. That's why if you get up to the machine, which I'm going to let you come up and look, you see it go across the pole, and all of a sudden the magnet violently shakes. So where is the energy coming from, right? Easy. 2 little spikes and 1 continuous flash. The poles flip and the motor moves. And that's all there is to it. Nothing hidden, no tricks. Take the wheel off. Give me $2,000, take the wheel off. Okay, so now, it's not doing anything, is it? It's just sitting there idling at whatever the resonance is. But notice one thing, Ed always talks about his sweet 16. How many magnetic poles on the motor? How many magnetic poles in the wheel? 10 in my case because I'm combining machines. Right, so right now, the wheel's rotating and not doing a damn thing for you. It's not making you feel warm and fuzzy, right? so it didn't do anything for me in the beginning either because I already knew I was going to make it. And I knew that it was going to run the minute that I made it. Because I could see it running. Now, what did I do different? I did not use a monopole circuit. I used a highly modified Bedini coal circuit. See, Peter and I go back a little bit. We worked together. We figured all this stuff out. We tried to present it, but you know what? When you go on a group and they violently beat the inventor and nobody controls the ones doing it, you know what the inventor does? Later, bud. And then, of course, they try to get the inventor back by saying, I was only fed table scraps. It's true. That's all I would give him after that, is table scraps. So, shall we run it? Okay, we will take it out of idle mode, out of regauging mode, and we will put it in run mode. Notice the meters. That meter there is the current that the machine is using, and it's going to follow exactly what Peter told you this morning. As the wheel rotates to 18.5 RPMs, if we're lucky, it has not been using the batteries this whole time, but when the green light's on, it's using the batteries. However, those batteries over on this side are now at full boil, whether you want to believe that or not. There's 36 volts there. You will probably go up there and measure 45. Now, how do you tell? You don't just use a voltmeter. You use a voltmeter that draws something. So if you put the switch up, you can see where, I'm going to let you come up one at a single file, and I'll move the switch for you so you can see it. So we just take this tape down. You first, Dave? Got to give David Luke a hand. He machined through the night. This guy. And so did Steve. Steve busted his butt to do this. So we have a good team. So come on. Let's one at a time. Don't touch anything. And don't get in the wheel. When the switch is up, it's telling you the condition of the primary circuit. When the switch is down, it's telling you the condition of the secondary circuit and where the battery is. I don't think you can pin it anymore. Now, let's do some calculations. It does 14 joules from this capacitor. Peter went through that with you. Does 14 joules and 3 pulses per second at 14 joules. How many joules is that? Now, how many a minute? How many an hour? How many in 12 hours? You see, it's self-regulating itself. It's not going to give it any more. It knows it's charged. Oh, he's doing the calculation. Good man. I bet you come out with $1 million, don't you? Now, you're asking, does the machine have any torque? Yeah. Yeah. You cannot stop the machine, and it just adds more power. Okay, so let's come by one. And you can view the meters. You can feel the airflow. The wheel weighs about between 250 and 3, maybe 400 pounds. And you can feel the air. Air conditioning. So John doesn't BS. If I'm gonna tell you something, I'm gonna put the machine in front of you. If you think you can disprove it, start measuring. It's possible, guys.
Can you take the batteries out?
No, you need a trigger. Can you take the batteries off? That's not how my machines work. Oh, by the way, the minute it exceeds the regauging, it generates up there. Something Watson didn't have. There's 3 coils. The first coil in the center is the master at 200 pounds. No trigger. The timing is on the back of the machine, so if you come this way, and guess where the timing is? Where John's been screaming, 23 degrees.
What size wiring do you use in your coils?
They're 18. Multiple times.
Yeah.
I guess it's slamming the batteries pretty good, isn't it? So here's the primary battery. And here's the secondary. Bet. Because it wants more battery. But to prove the point, I put small batteries on it for you. I knew I was going to get the question, what's in the boxes? There's a hidden power source. So you know what? I brought a drill with a cutter. Now, don't John touch the switches because there may be some psychic. All you do is down. The center is off and it goes back to rotation mode on the meter. See? The center is off because that's a hot wire meter. That draws current from the battery. So if there's any surface charge in the battery, you want the meter to read correctly. You don't want to deal in surface charges. And then I'll explain another thing about Watson after this. Yeah. So up is the primaries.
Yeah, we got a lot of people. Let's keep going.
And down is the secondaries.
And we'll run it faster.
It's not going to go any faster. It's limited.
Watch your head when you're walking around that end.
Yes.
It will knock you out.
Well, it'll do better knock you out and implant a magnet for you. Go ahead, grab the shaft. I don't care. Rick. You know what happened to you last time. You're going to rip your skin off.
It's sharp.
Don't do it, Rick. It just keeps adding power. I did. When I was first tuning it, I said to myself, John, yeah, myself, right? There's a self somewhere, right? I said, gee, I want to see which way this wheel's going to rotate. So without thinking about it, or just wanted to know, grabbed the battery, grabbed the coil by the 2 leads, put it across the battery, but when I let go, woo, my arms ached for 2 days.
Yeah. Nothing else would ache, right?
Oh, by the way, when you're walking around the machine, notice all the nonlinear things about the machine. Now, you're all asking the question, right? Well, what happens when the primary goes down? Nothing. It's been running on dead batteries all morning long.
Why do you have the primaries if you don't need them?
You need them for the little spike.
What's the RPM at idle?
RPM at idles between 3 and 7 RPMs, depending on the magnetic field that it's placed in. Changes from area to area.
Make it as a kid.
What, you want to make it as a kid? Oh, yeah, right.
TSA.
No, actually, you can build that.
An interesting experiment for you. 2 record turntables, identical. One stationary, one's running. The platform door roll at the top, and 2 identical small platforms. One moving turntable runs a clock faster.
Yes, yes, because of the magnetic field spin.
But it could be just a plastic turntable.
That's right. That's right. Has nothing to do with that.
Right.
Energy is swirling around you.
Are the outer magnets barium ferrite too? The outer magnets?
No, the inner magnets are not barium ferrite magnets. Regular strontium magnets. And you see the metal plate that's underneath the coil? I tuned that plate to shape the magnetic field. So if you bring the plate upward, you close the vortex of the magnetic field down. If you bring them outward, you open the zero portion of that field. It's well thought out. Yeah, don't do that, Rick. You can actually see them moving when the magnetic field goes by, because what I want is I want to bring out the stream, the magnetic field stream, so that I can ride that as the magnetic field goes up. I want to ride the vector lines of the magnetic field. And the 2 outer coils are stabilizers. They're slaves to the master. And you notice one is out further than the one's on the left is in further, and the one on the right is out further, because I want the magnetic fields nonlinear when they hit. I will turn it off and let you examine it so you can see what the magnets look like. There are 14 joules, right, stored in the capacitor. It pulses 3 times in a second.
So there's 42
There's 42.
per second.
Right.
So 42 watts. 1 joule per second is 1 watt.
Yeah, but
So
yes,
Yeah?
yes.
Okay.
And what's the torque? 42 foot-pounds.
John, these ones are these just pickup coils, and so they can be linear, and these are driving coils, so they're non-linear.
They're nonlinear because of the way the magnet material is made. Go look at the shape of the magnet material up there. 4,000 turns of wire on the center coil, 200 pounds.
What size wire is that? 18?
It's multiple. It's 220, it's 2 18s and 2 15s to get the correct impedance for the coil. It's 4,000 turns.
On the big one?
Yes.
How about on the small ones?
The smaller ones are 1/2.
Oh, just half of it.
Yeah. And then to get the right impedance, they had to all be parallel. If you look at the big wires on the back, those coils are all in parallel.
Is that to get the right circles?
That's to get the correct impedance so the machine can charge the cap like that and dump it. In the box with the meter, an inverted solid state circuit. It's in your book. It's called Inverted Circuits.
Now, the magnets on the back of your wheel magnets up on the outside rim.
Those are perimeter
they're at
magnets.
They're at an angle.
Yes, they are at an angle. You know why they're at an angle? I'll explain it in a minute. As soon as you guys go.
You got 11 pi shafts or 10 behind that plate?
10.
10. So they do line up.
Yes, they do. But they're non-linear. Actually, they don't line up because if I put it in the magnetic lock, they're exactly in the center of the spokes.
They are.
Yes. I will turn it off and let you examine it so you can see what the magnets look like. I'm going to get into that when you're through the linings. Okay. What's John talking about? The pie-shaped magnets in this plate. Right here. You will notice the outside's wood. The inside has a very thin steel plate, which the magnets are arranged with the points down. Why did I do that? I got a normal coil wound on these, and I can tell you what they are. You can read it there. I wrote the number on it for you if you look. Simple. At the top of the magnetic field's concentrated across the iron pole. And it's a short distance. It's like resistance. Make the resistor big or make it small. But in my case, I want the field non-linear. I want to have this part of the magnetic field big, and it's not doing what you think. It's being shorted. There are no loops coming out here like you would see a normal magnet because they're contained in the iron. You want them in the iron. You don't want them outside the iron. And on the opposite side of the coils, there's another wood disc with an iron back. And there's holes all the way around that. That was a discussion of Peter Linderman and me. We do that. He comes by, we discuss stuff. Come up with an idea, we try it. Don't know if it's going to work until you try it, right? But in 1984, I was building an outboard motor that was magnetic. And I had Les Adams of AZ Magnet cut me those shapes because that's the motor that I was working on. I wanted to be able to get out of the water if I didn't have any energy. I wanted to be able to run on milliamps. So to drive a wheel like that at 16 RPMs or 18 RPMs, if I was to use a conventional DC motor, how much would it take? How much do you think? What would it take on startup? Well, you started that on 5 and you were running at 1.1 or 1.6 with a current meter. That's not a very good current meter, but that's the only meter I have. And if that's the only meter I have, and if that's the only thing you're going to believe, you got it. They sell them everywhere. Don't blame it on John. So you've got those 2 meters. And if those batteries on that side, and if you don't believe me, Rick will switch the batteries for you. I'll make them switch the batteries for you. You can watch it right in front of your face. That way you can't say, well, he wouldn't switch the batteries. Must be something wrong. See, if in the beginning, the SG group would have been controlled like it should have been, they would have been building those. But they're in nowhere land, are they? Piss the inventor off. See what happens. You'll get what you deserve. Nothing. So, I'll go on with the explanation. People are saying, why are these magnets at an angle? I'll tell you why. I put the Neo magnets. Did anybody buy the DVD series where I explain Howard Johnson? What did I say? Why did Howard Johnson use a barium magnet or a ferrite magnet, a piece of plastic magnet, and then a Neo magnet? He made a nonlinear switch. That's how his train went down the track. It got close to the magnet flips polarity, and the train goes. The little spike in the coils there flips the polarity in the nonlinear magnet. That's what you want. It's not going to fly you to the moon yet, but close. So what I did was I watched the wheel run, and I said, that's not quite what I want. And I wanted to shape the field. I want the North Pole to pull back. Now, why did John do this? Why did John draw this drawing? Can somebody answer that? Because this is the way I see the magnetic fields, and when I measured them out, this is what I got. On a monopole motor, all north poles are out, because in my head, why do you need a south pole? You don't need to switch anything. Why would you want to switch it unless you wanted some torque or something? But I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the current that Tom talked about in 1984. What is that current? Phi. Nothing there. No electrons. The absence of all electrons. So how do we use the phi current, right? You got to store it in a capacitor. It needs to be translated. You store it in the capacitor, like Peter said in his little demonstration, and you dump it at the right time. And you recharge it when the motor's off. Don't forget that little trick. Or you keep draining current from the primary. Tom Bearden was very precise when he said to all you people, it's a step charge. It's like John climbing these steps. I can't get it any simpler. I'm filling the water tank. Now I can jump off and get hurt. Why did I make the circuits the way I made them? Because I wanted the water tank half full. It's not as hard to fill up the tank if it's half full. That's where it goes. It can only drop down to 36 volts. So guess what that makes possible? What do you think? 100% switch now we're talking about. But 100% recovery, right, Peter? It makes an SCR possible. It makes it reverse. That's what's in that box, is a FET switch backwards in the circuit. Why? Because the Zener diodes switch it for me. It's very well thought out about what John's madness is. And I always tell you exactly what I'm going to do to you before I do it to you. I told you all day yesterday what I was going to do to you. But nobody listened. You know why? I put it right in front of you. You have to think about why I do things the way I do them. If I tell you the truth, you won't believe me. You're looking for a lie. So my theory is, I'm going to put it right in front of your face and say, there it is. You can go over there and disconnect the box and take the box and examine the box. I brought a hole saw if you want to cut a hole in the box. I was prepared for all this. I knew everything that you would say. Why? I've talked to thousands of people on the internet. They all say the same thing, can't work. I know what your circuit is. This doesn't do it that way. This does it that way. No, it does it my way. I made it that way. So, nothing hidden. I'm not going to put a magnet up there so that you people can think about, well, John just put a magnet up. I'm not going away in 2 weeks. Nobody's stealing my batteries. Let me tell you something else. The Watson machine to this day is running underground in several places. But the Watson machine steals the service charge. What do I mean by that? If you look at the Watson machine, you use one battery, right? Here's what they discovered. I hope they worked it out. They probably did. They got more money than me. If you keep doing that to a battery where you take a little bit, you build up a charge and then go bang, put it back. What does it do, Peter? It crystallizes it. That's what they were looking for. Crystals in the battery plates. You know why? It turns into BBs. You can shake it like a maraca. That's why I do it that way. I solve the problem at my level, not theirs. I have always split my batteries because Peter and I discovered a long time ago, Peter was involved. Credits due where credits due. What was involved was you can't take power from my battery while you're trying to recharge it. Doesn't work. Oh, my car works. Of course. You got 400 horsepower sitting under the hood, and the alternator's running everything and not doing nothing to the battery. It's just sitting there. Only takes 30 minutes or 40 minutes to recharge the battery in your car, but the alternators is over 1 kilowatt. And your lights are at what? Maybe 65 watts if you're lucky. That's why you hit telephone poles in the middle of the night. So let's see what else we can play with. There's a good one. Jesus, that goes back to Bedini Electronics. Ron Cole. Ron Cole was a very good friend, engineer, and I'll tell you a little story about Ron Cole. Ron Cole he worked for NBC, and we knew each other from the hi-fi industry because we worked together in building amplifiers. On the other hand, Ron Cole was a very unique individual in that he could visualize things. He could say, oh, I can see what to do with that thing. And then you find your circuit over at NBC. But he would show up at 7 o'clock at night with a shopping bag. And you're saying, must have been bringing goodies to John. No. He was bringing beer for himself. And we're talking about 12 packs. Nobody wanted him to do it, but that's the way he was. So basically what happened to Ron Cole, as happens to everybody that drinks, sooner or later, the liver goes out. So Ron called me up one day and he said, goodbye, the trumpet's gonna blow. And I said, goodbye, Ron. And that was it. Ron Cole was gone.
How old was he, John?
Huh?
How old was he? How old?
He was just getting his Social Security, if that tells you anything. 62. His wife called me and said, John, do you want to come down here? Is there anything that you want of Ron's? I said, no. It's all here. It's all up here. It was already on the internet. John was like everybody else. When the internet came up, you had to have a homepage. So however you had to build that homepage, if you had to use a paint program like this one, that's what you did. And I wanted everybody to try it. I said, hey, try it. Don't believe me, try it. But here's what I found. If I give you a circuit and I put that circuit on the internet and I say, this resistor is 680 ohms and it uses this kind of magnet and it has 250 turns, guess what you'll do? You'll change it. So you will never get the results that I get because you didn't do it like me. When I said, this is the way I did it, of course, if it wouldn't have been for Peter, I would never learn how to spell anything anyway. So I would still be going went there instead of gone there. So the thing is, if I give you something and I say it's done this way, by all means, man, do it that way the first time. Then, once you discover whether you like the way it works or not, change it. You know, don't call up John and say, where'd you get those magnets? Well, you can't get barium ferrite magnets anymore, so don't call me for them. Don't call Rick for them, because you're not going to get them. It does not have to be barium ferrite. It was an experiment of mine, just to see what would happen. And it worked. Didn't have to spin it around with your finger like he's doing over here. See that? So, I want you people to enjoy yourselves. I want you to learn something. Don't sell me short because I'm not there. I'm working on this stuff all the time. I don't have time to get on the internet, as I used to say to Jerry Decker, and become a chatter. I have time to chat. I've tried the chatting. Doesn't work. Never gonna work. And you're always gonna have somebody infiltrating the mess that's gonna call you a liar difference. Why bother? Now, let's talk about Rick. Rick. Rick was the only guy that ever allowed you people to get these kids. John couldn't do it. John didn't have any money. I could never do it. Yeah, I can draw a circuit and build a little AM radio to listen to a station when they turn off my electric. But that's about what I could do. I never had any money. I was always scraping for money like most people that do these kind of things do. You scrape for money. And believe me, the powers to be know you're scraping for money. So you need to learn this. You need to know what energy is. I think it should be taught in grade school, like Shawnee did. I'm going to tell you a little story about Shawnee. Gene Manning would like this. I don't think I ever told Gene. I sort of kept it to myself. Shawnee Bauman was never allowed to participate in a science fair again. She tried it the second year, and they kicked her out. Why? It intimidated the teachers. Figure this out. How hard could this be? This is really simple. If you take one magnet and put it on a wheel, and you hook up the battery with just a clip lead, you can see the wheel moves. If you wait for the magnet to come around again and hit it just at the right time, the wheel goes, doesn't it? But where does the wheel go? The wheel goes past center of the pole. And just think, when you take that clip lead off, if you had a diode there to catch it, to bring it back to another battery that went back to the positive part, you'd be charging the other battery for free. What's so hard about that? That's like really simple. But not for somebody that knows nothing about basic wiring or electronics. It's not simple. You will scratch your head. You'll say, I only know what the plus is, like Gary back there, right, Gary? He'll tell you. I see the plus on the battery. I know the red lead goes there. The black one goes on the other one. That's it. It either works or doesn't. But Rick, on the other hand, plugged away on this group. I know, I talked to his wife. Talk to my wife. She'll tell you sometimes I didn't see him. Where was he? At work all night long, doing his whatever he did. Believe me, there were no girls there. There were only magnets and whirling motors and buzzing speakers. That's all there was. So I guess everybody knew where I was. Oh, John, yeah, he's up. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. The lights are on. What's he doing tonight? Like going into Mr. Wizard's laboratory. What do you do with that? Gary and myself moved to Idaho. We were actually born and raised in California and ran our company down there in Sylmar, California for 30 some years, and which was all amplifiers. And Gary and I moved 186,000 pounds of electronic parts to Idaho because I remember the diesel driver complaining that he blew 13 tires to get here. Of course, Tom says, what do you want to go to Idaho for? Why are you going there? I said, well, my dad suckered me into it. Rhonda says, I don't want to go there, it's cold. So, well, you can build the house you want. Okay. So that didn't last long because John got tired of the snow. I am tired of the snow. There's no Caribbean island for John. There's just Idaho. So welcome to Idaho, and welcome where the weather changes every 5 minutes. Now it'll snow. Just think, it's gonna snow on me, you'll be gone, won't have anything to do with it, and you'll never hear from me because I'll probably be buried by snow. But listen, everybody, it's Tom Bearden's birthday, and that's what this is all about. I thought that I would present this machine on Tom Bearden's birthday, for his 80th birthday. And when I talked to Tom, Tom said, John, no, it's not about me. It's about you. I said, no, it's about you, Tom. And he said, okay, like Tom always does, the gentle giant, right? Okay, John, whatever you want to do. Don't worry about it, it'll be fine. Get up there and talk to those people. So here I am. Happy birthday, Tom. It's on film now. So now what I'd like you to do is just get up and view anything that you want to view, take the pictures that you want to picture. I'm going to allow you to do that. I'm not going to keep it from you. We're not going to hide it. It's not going to be behind the veil curtain like in 1984 where the presentation was over and the machine disappeared. Not going to happen. So have at it. Is that good?
You did it. I said we've done it.
Was that good, yeah?
You're outstanding, John. Outstanding.
This side, actually, get them on there.
I want to take these up. All these colors here. I'm going to get that one ready. I'll get both of these ready in a matter of time. I want to talk about that one.
There's a lever. Like a lever. Like you're out in the garden.
What kind of sound is that?
The brake, if I set this, say,
Well, this one just has two coils. There's a total different.
you can look. One magnetic clock
This one, that one,
powers the other magnetic clock.
deal. Okay, this is what it is. This is the same thing as that.